Hey everybody, and welcome back to Jim's Garage. In this video I'm going to be telling you all about Postiz. It's an app that I can't believe didn't know existed, and it's helped me a ton with managing all of my social media, which I don't like at the best of times. What Postiz is a self-hosted, but they also offer a hosted version, place where you can combine all of your socials into one simple, seamless user interface. It allows you to do things like send the same message to all of your socials simultaneously. You can also schedule them and view analytics on each of the platforms and a whole host more. So let's dive straight in, let's get this up and running, and then we'll have a walk through some of the configurations, some of the overview, etc. Now, as I mentioned, this thing integrates with pretty much all of the social media that you could hope for. And if you don't want to be self-hosting it, you can do a 7-day trial here. But hey, we know we want to self-host it. So handily, there's a few ways to do that as well. The main thing really for me is I'm going to be doing this in Docker, but you can have other options. I'll be using a modified version of this Docker Compose file, which you can find here. But do note as well that there is Kubernetes and there is integration with Coolify, which I am probably going to cover in the near future. So choose your poison, doesn't really matter, but we're going to work through this Docker Compose file. Now the Docker Compose file for me, I've tweaked it to include some traffic labels, of course, and it ends up looking like this. Now conveniently I've added this .env file here. You will actually need this for some of your socials. If we have a look at their website, for example, you can see that on the left down here, there is configuration for each social media provider. So things like Blue Sky, for example, is really straightforward and we can do that just through the user interface. But if you go down to things like X, for example, you're going to need to create a developer account on X. It's free, so don't worry about that. And you're going to need to get some credentials, which then you'll paste into your env file, something like this, your X API key and secret. So just bear in mind that for every social media platform, just check their documentation and follow the guides, and you'll usually have to paste that into here. Now, as in my previous video, I think this is going to be quite good moving forward. I've set the host user in here, the working directory, and the domain for traffic, which hopefully makes it easier for you to just amend this env file, and then hopefully this Docker Compose file will automatically change. You don't need to delete all of my jimsgarage.co.uk stuff. So let's have a quick look through here and see what's going on. It's not too complicated, it's only using sort of 3 containers. The first one is this Postiz itself. We're pulling down the latest version, and then we're going to get into all of the environment variables. Now, one of the most important things if you're running this behind a reverse proxy is you actually need to set this variable here, actually these 3, to your actual domain. So because we've got that environment variable here, it should pull it from this file here. So just update that and you'll get the correct name. After that, you can probably guess what's coming up. We've got a database URL and a Redis URL. Those are the 2 other containers in the stack. We'll have a quick look through them, but there's nothing really different from my previous videos. Now, all of these environment variables are just taken from the Docker Compose file, which is set up to self-host. We're telling it basically that it is being self-hosted, and that's kind of what this is general here does. Then we're providing some locations to save our data, which you'll see in the next part are actually mapped as volumes, and those will automatically be created when we spin this container up in whatever you put your working directory as, which is in here, /Postiz, and then config uploads, and there's a couple more for Redis as well. Now, the original version of this compose file does come with Docker volumes. I've left those in so you can basically uncomment these and comment these if you prefer to use a Docker volume. I prefer bind mounts just because it makes accessing them easier, but it's totally up to you. After that, I've basically created this proxy network, added in the proxy labels, which handily now also pull in this domain name, so you only need to change it in one place. If you don't want to use this, obviously you can re-enable the port here, delete this proxy network, delete the labels, and that's pretty much it. Now this container, because it requires a database and it requires Redis, we're going to stick that depends on in here, and it depends on that service being healthy. Next up, we've got the Postgres itself, so that's the database where it's going to store some of that persistence. Nothing really different here from other times we've used Postgres. We're just going to be using whatever this username and password is. Be sure to change these, and definitely if you're going to be doing this in any form of production environment. But after that, really, we're just going to stick it onto this same network so that it has access locally, i.e. just internally, to those other containers. And then we're going to use Redis as well. Now, Redis probably again isn't necessary, but it's part of the default stack. It's very lightweight, highly performant, so I've kind of left it in. The same thing again applies if you want to use the Docker volume, just uncomment this. And then also down at the bottom of the stack, you'll want to do the actual volume section here, uncomment that. After that, really, all it is to define those two networks, that proxy and the Postiz network. The proxy one is external because I've created that previously, but the Postiz network is actually created within this Docker stack. So that's pretty much all we need now to spin this up and get it working. So we're going to hop into the terminal and we're going to deploy this thing. So pulling up the terminal and hopping into the right directory, you can see here we've got the Docker compose file. So if we do the old sudo docker compose up -d, that's going to pull those containers. They're pretty lightweight, so hopefully this should spin up in just a few seconds. We'll hop into Portainer just to make sure that everything looks as we expect in the logs. And then we should be in a position where after we've added that URL, so postiz.yourdomain, that should be now available in the browser. Go and stick it in your DNS resolver if you haven't already. So now that's finishing up, we should be able to hop now into Portainer and check that everything is as we expect. So over in Portainer, you can now see that we've got the Postiz stack. Postiz is running, Postgres is up, and so is Redis. Having a look at Redis, everything looks fine, ready to accept connections. We have a look in the database, that should be up and ready to accept connections, great. And also the Postiz itself, yeah, you can see that that's now up and running. So hopefully now we should be able to head into our browser and we should be able to access that. So I'll open up a new incognito window just to make sure. And if I head to Postiz, we should be greeted with the login page. So the first time you actually spin this up, you need to create an account. Now you can sign up using your Google account, but you might as well just create your own local account. So basically populate this with your email address, your password, and then your company name, and then click create account. Now, if you're wondering afterwards, there's a little hidden button down here for sign in. So I'm going to create my account and then we should be able to sign in. Now, when you first log in, you're greeted with the following page, which is pretty much what you're going to have to get used to when you want to include your socials. So, as I've said before, please do go and consult the documentation, especially if you're going to be doing things like specifically X or YouTube, and even Discord. There are different steps that you need to take. But things like Blue Sky, for example, and some of the other ones here, you can simply just click on Blue Sky and then you need to log in using your app password and your identifier. So this is your name and you do need to go into Blue Sky and create an app password. Again, please consult the documentation on their website. They've got a simple breakdown for all the steps you need for every single provider. And once you've done that, you basically just rinse and repeat this process for all of your socials. After a bit of playing around, this is what I've landed on currently during my testing. You can see here that I've linked my Jim's Garage, Blue Sky, Discord, and X. And you could also do things like YouTube, as we saw in the previous one. But I'm not going to do that at the moment. I just want to keep these kind of more socially and less about the actual content itself. Now, the beauty of this is I can now go to create a new post, so here, and then all of your socials that you've got are along the top here. So say, for example, I want to send the same thing to both Blue Sky and X. I can just write in here, let's say, this is me recording for my next video. Hope it works. Now we get a few options. We can actually do some previewing, and we can do that via each respective app, just like that and that. We can do some AI things. Now, I haven't got this plugged into AI because I don't have an account. I do need to check whether you can actually do that with local AI, so your own kind of Alarma instance or something like that. We can insert some media as well, so we can add pictures in here, just like you would do a regular tweet or Blue Sky, whatever we call that. Now it gets interesting as well because we can actually save this just as a draft if we want to come back to it. We can also tag this as well. We can have different tweets with different tags. Maybe if you're a business, for example, you could do, say, marketing or promotions or business, or I don't know, you get the idea. And we can also add this to a calendar. Now, if we add this to a calendar, what it's going to do is honor this schedule up here. So you can basically say how often you want to do this. And you might be thinking, well, why the hell would I want to send the same tweet more than once? I don't know, maybe you do. But what's more powerful is you can actually link this up to things like RSS feeds. So for example, if you want to retweet news or other things, and of course you can honestly build your own scripts out of this thing because it has its own API. So you could build any weird and wonderful web app you wanted. I don't know, maybe it retweets or automatically does things on your favorite content creators. And you can add some context to that, do some AI slop as well to add your own little spoofing to it. Who knows? But basically what you can do here is add it to the calendar at that scheduled time with all of what I just mentioned, or you can just say post now. So if I click post now, that's actually gone and posted it. And you'll see as well it's added that to the calendar on here, and you can see here that that's it. This is me recording, and it has a snapshot of what was sent and when. Now I'm going to close that, and we should have this little bell icon at the top. Now if I click that, it's going to say, look, your post has been published, and it gives you a handy little link. So let me click that link, and there you go. This is me recording for my next video. Hope it works. That's been tweeted. Perfect. And the same thing for Blue Sky. And as long as everything's configured and up and working, you could pretty much do that for any of your socials, and it would be just fine. Now, there is an analytics tab, but it's only for certain applications, and you'll see those here. It's things like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and Threads, none of which I use in a YouTube capacity. But that might be pretty cool if you do use those, and maybe if you're a business, for example, this is a great all-in-one manager, and you could actually look at the analytics across all of those platforms here. Lastly, we've got the plugs, and that's pretty much what it says on the tin. It's to plug things. So if something's doing well, you might want to say, hey, when it reaches a certain number of likes, repost it again. And you can specify how many likes, and you can set that there. And then also a number of likes on another post, so your followers get a notification about your promotion. These are all pretty handy things if you want to be doing any marketing. I'm not going to use those. I don't want to ram too much down people's throats, but if you are in that space of marketing, for example, this could be a really handy feature. Now, if we go and have a quick look through the settings tab, there's quite a lot of powerful stuff here. So we can obviously have multiple users here. So again, if you're a business or you're running a YouTube channel with lots of different people, you can obviously share account access. That means that all your socials in one place, and you can have a whole team that's authenticated and managed through this access control panel here, all able to post on your accounts. There are webhooks, like I say. So this is basically, it can send HTTP requests when something happens on Postiz. So maybe you can keep tabs on what people are doing in here, when tweets are sent out, etc. There's the auto post. So as I was mentioning before, posts can be synced to new RSS items. So it might be useful if you're, say, keeping abreast of technology news or whatever, you can post that out. You might have people who just want to sign up on a news basis. There's signatures, so you can sign off on each of your posts. Not going to use that. And then it's got that public API. So as I mentioned before, this has an API that you can plug into. So if you're developing an app and you want to make something simple to send out tweets, maybe your app does send out tweets, you can actually plug it into Postiz, and therefore you can get it to send to all of your socials in one place, all conveniently done through Postiz, which is a nice touch. And so that's pretty much it for Postiz. Go and check out the documentation. There's tons of new stuff. It's amazing that this is free, and it's really going to change the way in which I do some of my socials. I love just having everything in one place. I can just post now from here, and I don't even have to look at the nightmare content that's on all of these platforms. So let me know your thoughts on this, and if it's something that you're going to use. I think it's really powerful, and I think especially in the right hands, if you're a social media company or you're just a small business wanting to promote, this could be really beneficial to your productivity. Anyway, as always, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.